Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Marco coming at you before this episode begins to just let you know that the song you're about to listen to is called Blood Love by the band Dreary Eyes. Now, some of you may have heard that name before, Dreary Eyes. It's because I'm in that band, and actually, the guest for this episode is also in that band. Her name is Elicia Lici Hopkins. She is not only a bandmate to me, but one of my best friends. And this conversation was a pleasure to embark on, I guess, with her and Quinn. At the end of the episode, there is a second song that is played entitled Flutter. It is also by us, Dreary Eyes. And I hope you enjoy both. If you do enjoy these songs that you're about to hear, please listen to Dreary Eyes on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and wherever else you can get your music. We are also on Instagram at Dreary Eyes Band. But yeah, hope you enjoy this interview. And without any further ado, here is Blood Love. Everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Closers Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Marco Alvarado, and joining me is Quinn the Moondog Kalani. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
Chillin'. We have a guest today, a very close friend of mine. She goes by Lici, but her real name is Elicia, and she is in a band with me. Before we jump into the interview, though, I must say, please follow us on Instagram at The Closers Podcast, on Facebook at Closers Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are The Closers Podcast. So, Lici, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm just chilling outside with my dog. She wants to play fetch with me right now, but
I feel
it's
it.
cool. Chilling. How about you?
I'm pretty good, I would say. I mean, I feel like it's always cool to bring some friends together. And I mean, I've gotten to know you and Quinn separately over the course of, the past couple years. So it's always cool to bring two people that I've gotten to know
Yeah.
pretty well together. Like I said in the intro, Lici, you and I make music under Dreary Eyes. That's our band name. But you've done music longer than that. What was like your first foray into music?
Well, when I was probably like 15 and I was, in high school, took I took this guitar class and uh we had to do obviously live performances and things like that, and I didn't know anyone at class who really like wanted to play the same kind of music that I wanted to play. So I remember just kind of like, being like little 15-year-old kid looking around the room, like who's gonna wanna play what I wanted to play. I think I wanted to do like Marilyn Manson covers or something like that. And finally it was like so coincidental. I An old friend Matt, he was like a really good guitarist for like especially at that age. We got together and we just decided to cover a Marilyn Manson song, um, "Into the Fire." I don't know
Uh-huh.
if you've ever heard that one,
Yeah.
but we covered that one in class, and there were no vocalists really. They were mostly just like, you know, mostly guitarists and bass players and piano players. So I just decided to jump right in and do covers of all sorts of things for, yeah, I would say that's probably around the first time really, really started to get into it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So like with that in that vein of like Marilyn Manson and like is that kind of I mean, I know the answer to this, but just for people listening, of course. So like is that the type of music
Yeah.
that you kind of gravitate towards still today? Or like what are the artists that you kind of associate yourself with?
Yeah, definitely. I still, he's definitely a mood and like definitely a vibe, I would say. I still definitely listen to his music a lot. I wouldn't say as much as I used to because I was like a diehard fan, still am a diehard fan, but I listen to a lot of like recently I've been thinking about like Tamron
Hmm.
and a little bit of Chelsea Wolfe and her new band that her collaboration with Jess Gowry as well. Miss Piss.
Yeah.
That was really good. I've been listening to that a lot at work to just kind of keep me going.
Yeah, it's
And
more upbeat than Chelsea's normal stuff, right? It's like more punky.
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, definitely has like a more of a hardcore like I don't even know. It's like a weird combination. It's sort of got like elements of doom and then punk. Like once it like speeds up a little bit, and I'm like, this is fucking sick. Like I get down with that.
Yeah.
You've heard of Portishead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking about them recently too, and I'm like, really got to get back into them because that's it's so good. It's totally, also kind of like a darker kind of vibe, moody, I guess, but also like really pretty. Like,
Yeah. I feel that. Yeah. I've been listening to them a little bit too. Quinn, do you have any history listening to Marilyn Manson over the course? Like, have you ever listened to him or like Nine Inch Nails or anything like that?
Yeah, I remember when I remember when Marilyn Manson first came out in the late '90s, and I remember the whole Columbine
Oh yeah.
scandal, and I was there for all that.
Really?
So yeah, I'm pretty familiar with Manson. You know, the beautiful people and all that. And Nine Inch Nails a little less so. I'm more familiar with Trent Reznor's cinematic resume.
Yeah.
You know, because he does a lot of scores and stuff, most notably The Social Network.
Right.
But I'm not the most giant Nine Inch Nails fan.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
uh, go
you
ahead.
know about it though. I mean, that's a lot more than a lot of people like in the mainstream today. Like, of course, Manson's still considered mainstream because he's so well known, but I don't know. I feel like there's less and less publicity on him nowadays. It feels like.
Well, I don't know. It definitely seems like fade out's not the right word or connotation, but he's definitely has a lesser presence. It would seem today, but it would seem as a whole that the pool of entertainment and all forms of media is so vast and so greater now. Um, I could see it being, I could see it being absolutely difficult for any artist to really establish some sort of presence or foothold.
Yeah,
I guess I'd ask you guys, since you guys are musicians, how do you guys attempt to carve out that presence?
like presence within like our general music scene, like our small like circle of. uh is that what you mean?
Sure. And then how do you grow from that? Like, is it, talk about the actual steps into getting there and then
Mm.
the oppositions faced with it,
Oh, I
that sort
see.
of thing?
Yeah, like getting more well known. That's a good
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
question. Do you want to take that lead on that, Lici, or would you rather defer to me?
Um, I'll let you go into it, and I'll just kind of join in. I mean, I got some stuff to say, but
Yeah, I mean,
I kind of want to hear what you have to say first.
I feel like there's no right or wrong way to go about it. Everybody has kind of their own preference, how they want to make themselves look online and appear online. Like the last interview that I did last week with the 12th Human, they're very much about we have to get well known online. That's their focus. And back when Manson was coming up, I mean, he didn't really have that luxury because the internet was still, it was even more of a wild west than it is today. And
It was
so
TRL, man.
exactly, TRL was like it. So if you could get on TRL, like you're good. But we don't have that today, and it's a lot harder to get some exposure because there's a lot more artists. It's a lot easier to make music. It's very cost efficient now to make music. The barrier to entry is very low. So it's one of those things where you have to carve out your niche, and we're trying to do that by just kind of being ourselves, and just posting. We post on our band page very infrequently, and I feel like that's
Right.
that helps us in a way. I think that's kind of cool because people kind of,
Yeah.
I mean, people have listened to our music don't really like they'll follow regardless if we post a lot. Whereas with my downer stuff, I try to post very frequently, because I need to keep people there engaged because they're just a different audience than the audience with Dreary Eyes, and it's it's a very, for me personally, since I have so many like toes in different creative aspects, it's like Downer's one experiment with always keeping people engaged, and then Dreary Eyes is more of the opposite experiments. Like what happens if we don't engage people as often, but when we do, it's very meaningful. So for me, that's my perspective on it. And I mean, Lisa, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, you know, that's the thing is like they, like you said, if they're gonna follow, they're gonna follow. Um, I feel like you do, at least compared to me, I'm not very good at that, and I'm sort of a recluse, but you do a really good job at displaying yourself and making yourself known, and you do a lot of live performances, which is really important for
Hmm.
the music industry. Obviously not recently with the whole pandemic thing, but you're really good at that. I tend to have more of a hard time with that because like I have horrible stage fright, but it's
Yeah.
definitely however you want to present yourself. I mean, like I just have had a private account for such a long time too that I was like kind of like I don't know if I want people to follow me, or like I don't want random people, but I'm like at the same time it's you know I, there are people that like your music and fans and stuff like that. I've had
Yeah.
people find me, and I don't even like the live performances that I've done. I don't give them an option to find me. I don't say you can find me on this. My music is on this. I don't do that. they just find me, and then when they do, they're like, it was really hard to find you, but I love your music. And whenever that happens, I'm obviously very honored to hear that, because I don't make it easy, and I sort of feel bad about that. Like, I need to obviously get better at that, and I have time to do that. I'm still pretty young. There's so much time,
Yeah.
never ending.
Definitely. I mean, it definitely comes with time and maturity, not just as an artist, but as a person too, like what you're comfortable with. Everyone's different. But Quinn, to you, I want to kind of pivot and turn the question back to you. Like, when you're maybe not looking, because I don't think people necessarily go out looking to become fans of something. You kind of fall into things, and that's when you're, at least in my experience, that's when my biggest fan, attachments to a fandom or something, or to an artist, kind of become cultivated, because I just stumble upon things more so. But do you prefer artists that not bombard you, but are very present on social media, or very present in your space, like in general? Or do you prefer when artists kind of take that backseat approach and just kind of let the music speak for themselves?
Well, I think it depends on the medium. I think, if you kind of like in a podcast like ours, and a very social presence is obviously beneficial overall to the growth of what you're trying to do. For me personally, when it comes to, I guess, a more creative artistic form, whether it be film or music, I prefer them to have less so of a social media presence, or a public presence, because I don't want to know who they are. I don't want to identify them specifically with their art form, and I don't want their identity to necessarily convolute their art form. For example, trying to think of like let's just say, for example, Johnny Depp. There are people who go and they see a Johnny Depp movie and they just see the character. They're able to be fully immersed in it. And then there are people who go see a Johnny Depp movie and all they see is Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's, how it is specifically for him. I'm just trying to, metaphorically illustrate my point.
Yeah, I understand.
So I have a preference. I like a wall of separation, a degree of separation.
Yeah.
For me personally,
it's very difficult to have that wall now because of social media, where before I feel like there was a mystique that was added to artists, because like you like the only things that you had back in the day to kind of attach yourself to an artist was their music, and like interviews in magazines, hopefully on TV if they got big enough, and radio, and like buying their physical merchandise, and then seeing them in concert was like the ultimate, like to see one of your favorite artists in concert in like the 70s was the biggest thing you could possibly do. It was just so.
Well, this kind of snowballs into a bigger issue. Is that there's no prerequisites for fandom anymore. There's no work on the behalf of the fandom.
Yeah.
It's just, here's your ticket and now you're in the show.
Yeah. So,
and I think that takes away from the art form itself. For example, like, how many people are like, oh man, I'm a giant Metallica fan, and yet all they've ever heard was the Black Album.
Right. Okay. I see what you mean.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But there's always an entry point, you have to start somewhere there, like that. I mean, that's how most people become fans, is they hear one song and then they listen to a little bit of it, and then, they decide to go deeper, or maybe they don't. There are people out there who are just like, crazy fans, there's a diehard fans. I mean, it just so happens to be that band is for that person, or that music's for that person, versus somebody else just, liking maybe a lot of different music and picking different, music from different people. Because I know a lot of people who, don't really like, don't know a lot about one band, versus they just are kind of all over the place. Like that whole Die Hard thing, I do kind of get like that sometimes. I feel like with like Pink Floyd, for example, like
Mm.
I'm a total Die Hard Pink Floyd fan. I know like every album and can name like basically any song that comes on the radio. Like I always like to talk and differentiate about like Sid versus Roger, and I'm like, well, I do kind of get that way. I understand that whole mentality and just
Yeah.
yeah, but for the most part, I try to steer clear of that because like I said, everybody's got to start somewhere. Um, but I think
I feel that.
for the most part, I mean, like a lot of things are just trendy. Um, you
Mm.
know, so you can go to Target and get like a fucking like AC/DC t-shirt and people will go out and buy it not knowing who it is at all or just because it looks cool, which is fine, it does look cool. It looks pretty damn cool. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of that too. Just because, yeah, like I said, it's trendy and that kind of falls back into like internet kind of thing and like social media, like people seeing
Yeah.
something like I'll take like the Thrasher skate brand for example. Um,
Yeah.
that's like a perfect prime example of something that just blew up because it looks cool.
Right. Yeah.
Like obviously it's a whole skate thing, but a lot of people don't know that and they're just kind of like Thrasher, this is a sick hoodie, and I'm like, yeah, it is a sick hoodie. But
Yeah.
um
But like you don't even skate. Yeah.
yeah, but it's okay. you know just try not to judge people too much about it because they're just everybody everybody needs to fit in somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, and that's kind of my mentality on it. I used to be super 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 like um I like I was super into pop punk during middle or like high school, and in that like pop punk type of space back in the day, like 2013, 2014. It's weird to call that back in the day now, but for people listening to this that are in high school currently, possibly, I mean, it is for them. But anyways, uh, in those times, like there would be somebody who would say, "Oh, I like so and so band," and then I'm like, "Oh, cool. Like, what's your favorite song?" And if it's like their most popular, if it was like their most popular song, in my mind, I'd label them a poser. I'm like, okay, this person doesn't fucking know anything,
Yeah.
and I would like section them away into like a different category as like the real quote unquote fans that I knew at the time that were my friends. But now it's like getting older and being into different music now, and to just branch out as an artist too. It's like, who cares if somebody only likes one song and they go to a concert to just hear that one specific song they like because they like that one song so much. Like, it's not my way of doing it. I like to get invested in artists a lot, but hey, if that's your thing about like using Spotify to just hear like the best song from every artist or so,
Right.
I mean, I don't do that, but that's not my place to really judge people for how they consume their art and what they like to do. It's like I don't judge people anymore for that. But at the time, I feel like that's what I was definitely doing back then in like high
I
school and
feel
stuff.
like it's definitely a growing and a learning process too, where you kind of have to unlearn things like that, where you're get out of that headspace to kind of just be like, all right, let me just sit here and shut my brain down for a second or shut it all off and just kind of like retrain your brain to think the other way.
Yeah,
Okay, like it's because it's really, because it's also not that big of a deal. And
yeah,
it's, everybody's so different. They might be into other things and not like music as much as other people. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I agree with that. Um, I know that I, for one, have been trying to get more and more into hip hop and rap, which is something back then when I was not as mature as a music listener. I just didn't want anything to do with that space, anything to do with that genre at all. And because of thank you to Quinn and our homie Terrell, I've been getting more and more into, some of the genre's best work and such. So, I mean, I'll just let you guys kind of jump in too. what have you guys been kind of listening to like maybe challenge yourself and like get to know maybe like a genre? What genres have you been listening to that maybe haven't been your guys' forte in the past, but now you're trying to kind of push yourself to kind of get more involved in?
I don't know. I guess like hip hop is one of those things too, where actually I used to listen to a lot of hip hop when I was younger.
Hmm.
For me, it was like I listened to, I don't know, R&B, hip hop, like Alicia Keys, Tupac, and like Kendrick Lamar. It really just depends. It's like I do sometimes still go back and listen to it, but it's just not really, um, obviously I still really, really appreciate those artists. I mean, they're amazing, they're
Yeah.
legends, and it's,
Right.
they're unforgettable, and it's always going to be there. It's always going to be like a memory in the back of your head too. Like this song reminds
Mm.
me of this time, or whatever. But yeah, that, and it's definitely something that you kind of, it's hard to get back into. I don't know. I don't know how else to put it. It's
Yeah.
because it's not, especially because, you get older and then it's just not really what you're trying to listen to anymore. But,
Yeah.
it's okay to dive back in sometimes, I feel like.
I feel that. Yeah. So you've been revisiting maybe some older stuff that you used to get into. So Quinn, what have you been kind of challenging yourself with musically maybe?
Well, I haven't had a lot of time this week. Um, but I guess overall, more regularly, I've been listening to a lot more Motown.
Ah, I like that.
Just deeper dives on like the Detroit Spinners and Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose. That sort of thing.
That's cool. I grew up
But
listening to that and like playing. That's how I learned how to play bass, is on Motown music. The bass lines are intense on those songs. They're crazy.
Well, I mean, as you know, I'm a pretty big hip hop head. So lyricism is probably the most important element to a song that I'm looking for,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm finding some really like dope, introspective, meaningful lyrics in Motown. Like I said, I'm still doing it. I've been super busy this week,
Of course.
but yeah, that's kind of what I've been listening to more and more. Trying to branch out also in like my folk kind of thing. Kind of like I guess I would call it like an acid folk. No, you have like acid rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would call it like acid folk. Like
that's definitely
like I'm balls deep into Cat Stevens and Jim Croce, but outside of them, that kind of I'm still kind of tilling those fields, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's sick. That's funny that you mentioned psychedelic folk, because some people say that me and Lici make things in that vein, or at least we're trying to maybe push things into a slight psychedelic tilt, maybe in like future stuff we're working on.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I have like a bunch of like weird, ideas and instruments that we could probably use, kind of like, but we can get into that later. But yeah, so I've been kind of trying to experiment with that too, just like personally trying to figure out like the whole recording thing, and like just kind of like experiment with different sounds, or like different even like forms of like breathing, if you add like a lot of like reverb and delay onto it. It sounds pretty pretty cool, very ambient.
I
don't know, it just depends, like whatever.
What would you say because our genre is that we like kind of make stuff in, because I know on our Instagram we have ourselves listed maybe at, I think it's dark folk.
Yeah,
which fits.
Yeah,
I think
there's not really, there's like, we have like this one song, what is it called? It's that super electronic song. It's
I don't know, man. That's like,
that's horrible.
Yeah, that was like the first song we ever worked on together. It was called Purgatory. Was it Purgatory?
It's not Purgatory. No.
Fountain of Youth.
Fountain of Youth. That one is obviously very
good. That's a rough cut. but it's a cut. And it is something Like,
Well, yeah.
even though it is kind of rough, it's not the most deep song. It's very just it is what it is. But I mean, I think listening back to it, it is one of those songs that like you could hear the potential just in that. And
Yeah, and there's a lot that I think about when it comes to like potential for that song, where it's like we could still totally redo that song and make it into something else, and I think that would
oh, for sure,
but
definitely.
I mean, the lyrics are sentimental to me, and I'm
Mhm.
like, obviously, that was like the first song that we recorded. We didn't really know what the hell we were doing. I
Yeah.
still am learning. I don't know what I'm doing with the whole setup right now. I'm still trying to figure it all out because I just
Mhm.
got my setup going. But that would be totally fun. We should do that sometime. Get that down the
Definitely.
road, though. I think we need to kind of start fresh with something, and
Yeah.
whatever.
Do you want to tell people how we started working together? Like how like how we met, or would you
Yeah.
or do you want me to?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I don't mind. I think it's kind of funny. It's a funny little story.
Okay. All right. Well, um cuz like when people have asked before, I'm just like we met at a show.
Right. I know. I
It's
do the
fine.
same thing. I'm like,
I'm like, yeah, we just met at a show. But I mean, I don't think it matters
doesn't
anymore.
it? Yeah.
It's funny. We met on Tinder. We met on Tinder and we matched and I was like obviously I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." But then she had her SoundCloud listed in her bio and I was like, "Okay, I'll check it out." And I listened and I was like, "Bruh. Okay. Like there's no like attraction here other than like I want to make music with this person cuz this is insane. Like her voice is so good." And then I was just going to a Chelsea Wolfe show, which Quinn remembers because I talked to him about it. Like the day I was going, I was working with Quinn that Saturday, and there was some dude that came into to our work that was like talking about going to a separate show, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to see Chelsea Wolfe tonight." He was like, "I wish I was at that one." And then randomly, like Lici texted me that day, and was like, what's up?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna see Russian Circles and Chelsea Wolfe." And you were like, "What, dude? I'm so jealous. Like she's my favorite artist ever." And I was like, "I'm just discovering her. She's awesome." So then I sent Lici like a ton of videos from the show, just like of her entire set. I
Like I
sent
can name
like
that
hella
one and
videos.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and she just started naming all the songs. So like to go back to our fan discussion, she's like a fan of Chelsea Wolfe, like a super fan.
Yeah, no, I've been a fan of Chelsea Wolfe since I was like 12 or 13. I'm 21 now.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Mhm.
She's been around for a long time. She's local to Sacramento, which is fucking amazing. We love our hometown heroes. Um,
We do.
yes, we do. But yeah, I think it's actually really funny. I think about it how when I discovered her, especially at that age, like to her songs are so much deeper, and it's kind of like, what the fuck was I like? Who did I think about it because I was so young, and I'm like, I don't even know what she's talking about. And then I'm older, and I'm like, I get it now. The music's, you start to understand actually the
Yeah.
lyrics and what's going on, and then it becomes different. But yeah, to have been a fan that long, and I'm still a diehard fan. She just continues to come out with great music, and really,
Mhm.
really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, she's great.
Yeah.
She's definitely great.
Hmm.
But yeah, like to finish up the story after like we talked about Chelsea Wolfe like a week after Lici reached out and was like, "I see you make music too. Would you want to like work on something with me and my friend?" And I was like, I'm down. Like I'm super down." But then her friend ended up like dropping out of the idea of the project and we just kind of carried through with it and we like started hanging out and in January of 2019 we started recording and like we would hang out in my room like we would try to meet at least once a week to work on stuff but of course life happens and it's been difficult but like nonetheless like that's kind of how it started. It's really funny hearing the origins like thinking about it now but um I mean we released like how many songs this year? 4 songs this year? Like in the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, we released my favorite song we've done in June.
is that Flutter, right?
Flutter is dude, Flutter. Well, okay. Flutter's great. I fucking love Flutter, but also like, of course, Blood Love is just
Dude,
like, man.
I was just talking about that song earlier today with have you met Carlos? He lives next door to my mom. It's Antonio's dad.
No,
Um
I have not.
anyways, so he is going to be, I'm going to pay him, I'm going to commission, you know, some art for maybe like a personal album or an EP or something, you know, like my release of whatever. And I was talking to him about that, and I was like, I showed him Blood Love, and I knew I knew that one was going to be a hit. I just had like this feeling. I was like, this is great. And then immediately, like after we finished that song, I was like, we've struck gold. This is it.
Yeah.
And I was, you know, I was right. I was like, this is the one.
You were very right. You were very right. That song is fucking great. I must say, I know I know I made it. We made it, but like that song, I just feel like it's so like just it's so easy to consume. Like it's so straightforward, but yet there's a lot going on in the mix. And I, for one, barely knew what I was like. I knew I was in a class at the time for production, and it was pretty like, so I was using some of the tricks I learned from that class in that like mixing of that song. But it was like, listening back, it's like, man, it's so simple how I mixed it, but yet it just isn't so impactful. And then you adding that like reverby, like we had like a quarter, and you like striking up like the quarter up against a guitar string with like reverb and delay just turned up all the way, and that just adds so much depth to it in the beginning of that outro of the song. It's just like, man, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's so crazy.
That was an idea, because we did that on electric guitar, but there was this song that I had recorded. It was called Drink Your Fate. It was a personal song that I did that's only on my SoundCloud. I mean, because that's the only platform I have right now. But yeah, well, I did the same thing except on acoustic guitar, and it came out obviously sounding very different. But it's, you know, it's a very, very dark song, and it gives like this really, really cool effect. I think that's something that I'll still continue to do in some songs, because you can make it sound so different, and like maybe with like different pedals, you know, a different just different sounds. It just it depends on what you're going for.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was a really fun song to make, and the fact that we were able to record that in a day, pretty crazy.
I know, and it's like sometimes I'm like, man, I'm just so proud of us. Like, I think, like, do you ever like sit there and look back and just be like, wow, like I didn't think that I would actually be doing this or like come this far? And it's like, we're not even anywhere where maybe we might see ourselves in the future quite yet, but when you look back, it's like, wow, I've come a very, very long way. Like that we have things that we've created that are, you know, to our name. Like, we've created this, and I just, it's just a really, really amazing feeling to be able to say that, you know, we did that.
To be able to say that we did something that we're proud of, it is really cool. And I'm really excited about what we're going to do in the future, because like, I already know, like, I've just gotten so much better. Like, dude, oh my God, I've been listening to like my old Downer mixes, like even songs that I haven't even released, but I just had done for Downer. And dude, it's crazy just how like more pristine the newer stuff I've been working on sounds as opposed to the old stuff. Like, I sent my best friend Gavin a mix for a new song that I was working on, and it's more up tempo and stuff. And he listened to it while on the phone with me, and he was like, dude, it literally is like just a world of a difference. Like, it sounds like you know what you're doing more now. And it's like, okay, now that I know what I'm doing now, like I know more, I have like my legs under me. I have my sea legs now in terms of in the world of audio production.
Need help.
I will teach you. Yeah. So now that I know kind of what I'm doing, and like the intricacies, not the intricacies, I'm still understanding those, but I know generally how to make a decent mix. And like, oh, dude, I just can't wait. I cannot wait. I can't
I
wait
know, I'm very excited
at
for the
all.
future too. There's a lot of potential floating around in the air.
Yeah. Quinn, have you heard our songs?
I listened to a couple of them while I was at the laundromat this morning.
What'd you think? I'm curious.
I definitely noticed a sort of Chelsea Wolf vibe. You go to my history, very ethereal.
Ah, ethereal. We love that word.
Yeah.
So let's see. I listened to Flutter, Angel Kisses, Purgatory. And then I listened to another one. I'm trying to remember.
The Buck Knows.
What was the name of it? I remember the image. Yeah, it was someone holding a rose. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you listen. Okay,
Blood
good.
Love.
You listened to the good songs.
Yeah, I listened to Blood Love. What did I say? Purgatory, Flutter, and Angel Kisses.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like for me, like I hear, like I pull, like I don't know if you know who Mazzy Star is, but
Yeah, of course. I do.
well, I know you do.
But Quinn.
But like I feel like I pull a lot more like when I'm doing music, like I like to jokingly say that it's sort of like a combination of like Mazzy Star and Chelsea Wolf, just because I'm like
Mhm.
those are like my two favorite, like at least for like
Yeah.
vocal wise.
Mhm.
There's definitely a resemblance in
Yeah.
that. But I feel like for me though, I lean more towards like Mazzy. I'd like but honestly, I still am trying to figure out my own voice right now or what I'm gonna be
Yeah.
doing. So
Mazzy Star is a huge influence for us for sure.
Yeah.
Like for the project, and honestly, after like working with you, it's now an influence for Downer for sure.
that's so sweet. I love that.
Have you heard any Mazzy Star too, Quinn? Like they're a '90s act, so I don't know if you have or not, but
I've not.
Okay.
I'm familiar with Chelsea Wolf, obviously.
yeah. Yeah.
Being the area and stuff, but no.
Okay. Well, if you do check them out, you'll definitely hear some like the similarities. But I'm curious what you thought about the songs too that you heard from us, just from like the outside perspective.
So my first, I'm trying to think of like the first few words that came to my mind that I associate. Ethereal,
Yeah.
and if I'm remembering correctly, was it Blood Love?
Yeah.
Is that the name of the song? Yeah, Blood Love. That was the first song that I listened to, and I was like, so this is pretty ethereal. Almost like if someone was singing out on a dock in front of the ocean.
I love that image.
to some Navy guy who ain't coming home.
Oh, a double A. Oh, no, got it. Singing to Japan, singing all the way to Japan.
Yeah, so ethereal. There's also I think inherently with its ethereal nature, there's also there's a cinematic nature that it lends itself
Interesting. Cinematic. I like that.
When you're ethereal and you're stretching out these long notes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, and chords are running for a long time. There's a sense of grandeur of something larger at play. So that's why I use the term cinematic. So I would say ethereal, cinematic, are probably the two words of association I would add to it. If I remember correctly, out of the songs I listened to, I think Flutter was the most upbeat.
Yeah, definitely.
That stood out to me because of its of the difference.
Yeah.
For example, in Blood Love and Flutter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I would say ethereal and cinematic are the two words that I would associate with it. It definitely evokes images.
Yeah.
And that ultimately, that's at the very base of what I think anyone hopes to do who creates something, is to evoke or elicit some sort of response.
Yeah.
So I definitely succeeded in doing that.
Well, thank you for the kind words, sir. I appreciate that a lot. I know I can imagine Lici does as well.
Yeah.
But cinematic, that's something I haven't, like cinematic specifically. I guess because like Lici wrote all the lyrics for all that stuff. And one thing I can say about like Lici's style of writing lyrics is there's very much a setting, and there's very much like objects that you can associate with and you can paint in your mind how that object looks or how a certain scene looks. Like for Flutter, like, you know, like, can you like, what is it, baby, can you hear the sea waves like roar as they wash ashore? Like just hearing that illustration just paint out, and then the music behind it just like kind of enforces that vibe. It's crazy. So like, I definitely, now thinking about it, cinematic very much makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Because
it's a pretty apt word. There's a line from a movie, one of my favorite movies, called The 13th Warrior, based off a book called Eaters of the Dead by Michael Crichton. And it focuses around this man from Arabia who is brought into a Viking troop. And this guy's, you know, he's looking at these runes, and he's teaching this Viking lord how to write, basically.
Oh.
And, you know, the Viking says to him, "You know how to draw sounds."
Mm.
And that's I guess that's it feels apt to me.
That is apt. Wow. I have that book. I have that book. It was given to me by my older brother like decades ago, and I've never read it, but I have it in my closet. I have to read it.
You should read it. It's a legendary book.
Wow. That's very cool.
I think for like,
it's one of my favorites.
the lyrics thing, it's more of like take just dreams. A lot of I like to write about like dreams that I have. So like they're not necessarily like, I mean, obviously they're personal, but like they are mostly just based on dreams that I've had, because I'm a very like heavy dreamer, and that's something that I always, I don't know, I feel like maybe I've trained my brain to be that way, like subconsciously, unintentionally, because like I just always remember them, and sometimes they just really, you know, really just sink in, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'll write about it, I'll make something out of it, and then I do, and I think that's why they sort of have that vibe to them, maybe because they already in my brain have already lived a different life. If that makes sense?
Yeah, no, I think it does. I mean, dreams are inherently themselves cinematic. They're
right.
They're, you know, void of time and space.
Right.
So I kind of get that vibe, especially with Blood Love. You know, it doesn't feel like a song that's in a time and a place. It feels like a revolution, not in like a political sense, but in more of a geometric sense.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way to put that.
You know, kind of how like a lighthouse is constantly doing this number. It's constantly rotating. It's constantly spinning.
Yeah.
It's the vibe I got.
Like a spin. And then, like, you're kind of going like a lap.
But it elongates. You know, you have a branch of light that's reaching out.
Yeah.
You know, there's a projection element to it.
That is true, and that's why I was so curious to see what you had to say, because I know, Quinn, you have like, you being an artistic mind yourself with your, you know, you're pursuing film in school, and you know, you've written a lot. You consume a lot of music, and you're very much into that, you know, cinematic world too. So like, I was curious as to what you would think of those songs. And I mean, you did not disappoint with your illustrations. Did not, for sure.
No, I mean, I liked them. And this is my preferred way of consuming music. You know, I don't like the big show and dance of the online community, you know. That's, you know, that shit's for the birds, and the birds fly south. So, I mean, that's not for me.
I feel that.
Yeah,
it's really cool. And I honestly, like, I just want to I want to share a quick story about like Flutter specifically, because that song, it just like evokes an emotion for me. Well, Blood Love does too, but it's just like hearing that song, and at the very end when like the other vocals come in, and it just kind of puts everything in a box, and it really just like, to kind of borrow Quinn's, you know, illustration of like a like somebody singing to the ocean. It very much feels like the ocean sings back in that song at the very end. And hearing that, and knowing that like I had a hand to play in cultivating and like making that a reality, is like probably the most thing, like the biggest thing I'm proud of, in any respect, like in anything I've done musically. Like that song is the biggest thing I've been proud of for sure. And it's just funny how we wrote that song, like we made it like a possibility, just because like I know Lici came over one day and we were just like trying to find something to make because we just finished another song, I believe. I think we just finished Angel Kisses, and we were like out of ideas almost. And Lici was just like, "Well, I have this," and she played like the first, like she just played a really rough version of it, and I was like, "That's it." And then like it just all fell into place so naturally. It was just crazy. It just kind of wrote itself, and it was just like honestly, it just it's inspiring looking back on that process for that song, because we weren't even really knowing what we're going to do that day, and then it just happened and it was just so natural.
Well, I'll say that some of the music that I've been listening to really recently, some of it feels superficial on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And I say superficial on the surface because obviously I don't want to besmirch anyone who's like creating anything.
Yeah.
But I will say, when I listened to your guys' YouTube channel today, that it did not feel superficial, and it felt creatively exploratory, which is what I'm attracted to.
Yeah.
And so yeah, no, I thought it was good work overall, and I'm interested in seeing the progression from here.
Yeah.
Some more of the same,
Mm-hmm.
some more of the same, but also progression of the evolution, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
No, I get you. I'm excited too. I'm actually seeing Lici in about like 30 minutes, so we're definitely going to talk about what we're going to do next, and like what our next step is, like musically. Because the thing is, I know Lici, you and I've had many conversations in the past about like how long are we planning on like pursuing this project, and like what kind of we're trying to do with it. And we both have come to the same conclusion. It's just like, dude, honestly, whenever, like, yeah, we're going to continue to keep pushing forward, but at the end of the day, like, even if nothing really comes out of it, we really enjoy making music together, and like it's just fun, and like we're hoping for the best. But even if nobody really listens to the songs, like as long as we're proud of what we make together, that's the main goal.
Well, nothing that nothing that is done creatively should be for anyone else but yourself.
Yeah.
Ultimately, even in like school of thought that I'm in, where your whole creative process is built around, a buck,
Mm-hmm.
a finance. Yeah. For your creative soul, the moment you start doing that is when someone sells out.
Yeah, when you try to
figuratively and literally, when you taper your own creative process, in a means to entertain someone else,
yeah,
or to please someone else, or to elicit anything outside of the creator's intention.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And the thing is too, it's like for me specifically, like I know that with Dreary Eyes and with Downer too, like, well, specifically I'll speak on Downer, I guess. I've been trying to like input a lot of influences with Downer specifically, because with Downer, like that's definitely more of a, like, whatever I feel like doing in the moment, and whatever, like, I have a general direction of where I want to go, but I'm open to, like, if somebody's like, hey dude, like I have a really sick like little trap type beat that maybe we could collaborate on, would you be open? Like, my answer to that is yes. Like, I'm down to take influences from the popular culture and kind of ingrain that into what I'm doing with Downer. And I feel like that's a very important distinction in terms of selling out, because it's like you can still be influenced by the mainstream and not sell out. It's more so when you inherently are trying to cater to that is where the selling out maybe aspect comes into play. Would you agree with that, Quinn?
Yeah, Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think this harkens back to our original discussion on how to market yourself.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's interesting. How do you balance that line, especially in an online world, in an online society?
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance that line between selling out and just marketing yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
So
very fine line. But
I'm not taking a position on it. I'm just, saying that it's an
yeah, definitely.
interesting road.
Yeah.
I don't know. Marketing yourself is very like, to me, it does seem very foreign. Like, I don't really, not to say that I don't get it, that I don't grasp it, but that is just not something that comes naturally to me. And I kind of don't really, honestly, I just don't. I don't really market myself. I don't really put myself out there. I don't say, hey, I'm doing that. Every once in a while I will if I'm feeling a little spunky or whatever. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of spelling out, I definitely I don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of selling out and being like this huge mainstream
Yeah.
thing. I mean, because yeah, at that point it's just kind of like you're not you're just missing the point. You're not grasping the whole idea of really just being an artist and a music lover and in general it's just a whole different
Yeah.
ballpark. It's I
Mm-hmm.
mean I just don't think that I'll ever do that. At least I don't want to. I don't have any intentions on it.
I think it's funny though that like in terms of like social media, like marketing yourself on social media and like doing things like that, like you and Quinn are very much in that same vein of like
I hate when I do ads
yeah.
for the podcast.
I
I
feel
hate
like
it. I feel like a whore. Quite honestly, I
I think
legitimately hate it.
I
I've had your mom comment on some of my ads, and they're like, "Smile."
yeah, it's hella funny. He's like, I feel like a horror. I'm like, dude, yeah. It's such a weird feeling to be like. It just feels so vain.
yeah.
It feels like
It's yeah.
it feels very conceited. But at the same time, I mean, like, how else do you expect? Like, you have to market at some point. I mean, you have to put yourself out there
Right.
if to gain some sort of following. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gotten to that level yet, but
Yeah.
eventually, if I
I
really
mean,
want to get somewhere, and it's gonna have to be done, like, um, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Yeah.
You just have to get used to it,
right.
and
Word of
still stay true to yourself versus just doing it for the people, and trying
Yeah.
to be something that you're not. It's just really important to stay true to yourself. I feel like.
I was gonna say word of mouth nowadays is usually contained to about 140 characters.
Yeah.
So it's like we were saying, it's a fine
Right.
line.
Yeah, it is a fine line. I think it's interesting hearing your guys' like perception of marketing and stuff because I was there. I've been there too. I mean, I'm a marketing major, but I didn't start out as one. Like in mind process, like how I perceive social media and stuff. Um, and for me, it's really about like marketing itself. Isn't like to me my how I see it. Marketing itself isn't like the thing that's bad.
Right.
It's how you do it. And there's a lot of ways that you can market yourself and show yourself as a genuine person, not just trying to be like just trying to bombard people all the time and like the image you portray. And I think there's a lot of ways that you can kind of show yourself online and in other spaces as an honest person who's really just trying to get their art out there as opposed to I'm trying to make it big and like you guys have to help me and like everything's centered on me. It's really just about like for me, at least what I try to do, especially with Downer, because like with Dreary Eyes, it's like the opposite end of the spectrum we're trying to do.
Yeah,
It's like very much
Right.
like, hey guys,
you do a really great job.
thank you. It's very much like I wanna show people like an insight on like what I'm doing and like just if you're interested, cool. If you're not, it's no worries, like no hate at all. Like I've had people who are still friends with me that don't follow me on like my personal Instagram or Downer because they're just not into seeing like every facet and that's fine. And like I respect that, and I think there's people that use marketing and they're different. They have a different mentality. Like we want you to listen to us and that's our end goal. And for me, it's not that. It's just I want you to just kind of be involved. And if you like the music, cool. If you're not, that's fine.
You got like an open gate policy for your community.
Mm-hmm. That's what I try to do, and even with the
That's the way
podcast.
that it should be.
Mm-hmm.
It should totally be, and that's what, I feel like in the end will get you a true following, is because like I said, you do a great job at marketing yourself because you are being yourself, you're being genuine. Um, you've you've grasped the idea of being yourself, just doing it the right
Firmly
way.
grasped.
Yeah, you got a grip on it, man.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the
Yeah.
kind words for you guys. It is interesting, and honestly, I've had a really great time talking to you, Lici. I'm definitely. I mean, I'm going to see you in person in like 30 minutes, but I mean, it's always great, and honestly, it's really cool hearing you guys interact. And I mean, you guys have a lot in common, especially your perception of social media and stuff, and that was very insightful. Hearing that. Quinn, is there anything you want to say before we dip out on this segment?
No, no, I have nothing to add. Just thank you for coming on our show and dropping some knowledge. And yeah, just thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Quinn and Martha.
Tell us where we can hear your solo stuff too, because we didn't really talk about that.
Well, I do plan on putting it on different media platforms like SoundCloud and whatnot. I'll probably go through DistroKid like we did for Dreary Eyes, but right now I'm just on SoundCloud, and it's under Licifer, however you want to say it, Licifer.
Nice.
But there's nothing really too interesting on there. It's just a bunch of old stuff. It's kind of just a space that I use for like rough drafts and things that have potential to become something else, and eventually they will.
Very sick. I definitely urge everyone listening to this to check out Lici's SoundCloud, because there's some really, really cool, use Quinn's words, ethereal sounding stuff that was made on just her phone too, a lot of the stuff, and it sounds fucking awesome. So definitely check it out. It's definitely a vibe. It's very much a mood. If there's ever a rainy day and you're wanting some sounds to kind of fit that, definitely listen. It's really, really immaculate. Lici, again, thank you, and I'll see you soon. And now I guess it's time for me and Quinn to talk your ear off about NFL Week 5 and give our games of the week for Week 6, and we're also going to do weekly recommendations. So here that is. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with one of my really close friends, Lici, on our music and the things to come. Now it is time for our games of the week, our NFL games of the week. Before we jump into our picks for Week 6 of the NFL season, I think we need to hit on our predictions from last week. Our games of the week for last week, my pick was the Colts against the Browns. I picked the Browns to win this game, and they did. However, Quinn, you and I predicted a different outcome from your game of the week, which was Ravens-Bengals.
Bungles, more like it. Bungles.
They played like it. What did we predict, Quinn?
We predicted like a tight game and a Cincinnati upset, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you predicted a Cincinnati upset. I predicted the Ravens to win narrowly, but I predicted that Joe Burrow would this would still be a statement game. That Joe Burrow would show everybody that he belonged in the league. Now, I still think that people believe he belongs in the league, but I don't think that this was the game that he showed necessarily that he could hang with the big boys quite yet.
Agreed.
They got trounced by the Ravens.
Mollywopped.
It's apparent that they still have a long way to go with that team. They have some good pieces. I think you and I both would agree on that, but that game was pretty tough to watch, and the Ravens, beat them pretty handily, 27-3. And if you're a fantasy player, the Baltimore Ravens defense scored over 25 points. So that's really all that you need to know about that game, quite honestly.
Marlon Humphrey, man. Marlon Humphrey's not talked about enough when discussing top cornerbacks, defensive backs in the league. Marlon Humphrey out of Alabama, Roll Tide, is a stud. Had the forced fumble early on in the game that got them that quick defensive touchdown.
Yeah, it's true. Marlon Humphrey's is a beast for sure. It's pretty crazy to see the Ravens defense, respond the way that it did. Speaking of respond, I'm not one to talk about my team a lot on this podcast just because I reserve it for really special occasions. This is a very special occasion for me. So I'm going to, if you allow me to, Quinn, I'm going to indulge in a little bit of Raiders talk.
By all means.
Because they did something remarkable this past Sunday that I never thought I'd see them do with Derek Carr as quarterback, and that was win in Kansas City, albeit a very low-capacity, crowded Kansas City Arrowhead Stadium. But nonetheless, we won 40-32. Derek Carr outdueled Patrick Mahomes to win that game. The Raiders, with Henry Ruggs back and Trent Brown back on that offensive line, we were able to secure the victory and beat the Kansas City Chiefs in their home stadium for the first time in 7 years. I was 14. I was 14 the last time. No, 15. I was 15 the last time we won in that stadium. I am now 23. So it's been a minute, and it feels really, really, really good to have a victory over those guys, especially on a night where the Chargers lose in a heartbreaker to the New Orleans Saints, and a week in which the Broncos got their game rescheduled because New England just cannot get a grip on COVID protocols, apparently. So we are, the Raiders, the only team to win in the AFC West this week, and it feels pretty fucking good. So I'm proud of my guys, and I'm proud that we've stuck with Derek Carr as long as we have, because now we're finally seeing some results. It seems like he's not afraid anymore to sling it downfield, and I'm really happy about it.
How about Henry Ruggs' game? Another Alabama Roll Tide guy. 2 receptions for 118 yards.
Yeah, 2 deep bombs downfield. Like, if you had him on fantasy, we play PPR, but even in just standard, he would have gotten you easily over 16 points. Where in PPR, he would have gotten you 20 points. It's insane. It's fucking crazy. That dude's a beast, and Darren Waller's a beast. I'm just so proud of my guys. What do you think about the Raiders win, Quinn?
I thought it was great. I thought it was awesome. I've had a strong feeling and indication that the Raiders coming into this season were going to be studs. I've said that multiple times on this podcast now. You believed at certain points more than I did. Yeah, and I was very impressed. It seems like the offense is starting to open up more. Josh Jacobs is getting not less involved, but it seemed like the first 2 weeks they depended heavily on him, which made sense, because no preseason, you're not really at full chemistry yet. Excuse me. So you lean on the run game, and then once you establish that rapport with your receivers and the rapport with Waller's been there. Yeah. Then you can start opening up the field. So honestly, I think the Raiders' offense is probably the best it's been, in my estimation, the last decade. Oh, easily. Yeah. I would say it's arguable between this offense and the offense we had back in 2016 when we went on that 12-4 run. Oh, yeah. During that season. Amari Cooper's show-out year. Yeah, he balled out, and we had still had Khalil. But in that year, we banked on a lot. There was no decisive wins that year. It was very much every single game came down to the last play, and we just broke right. It broke right for us. Whereas this year, it feels different because that New Orleans game that we won,
the first game against Carolina, that was very much reminiscent of that 2016 season. But we beat New Orleans pretty decisively in Las Vegas. Of course, we drop games to New England and Buffalo. It happens. But then in this game wasn't as close as the final score looked. In garbage time, the Chiefs dropped a touchdown and got a 2-point conversion that brought them in closer, but they were down by 16 before that. And like I said, in garbage time, they got another touchdown to make it look close, but it really wasn't that close.
That's the key to beating the Chiefs. You got to get out fast and early.
Yeah.
You got to force Patrick to make plays, big plays.
And he even said that in the post-game press conference. He's like, we can't be relying on me to throw it downfield and pull rabbits out of my hat all the time.
Right.
We have to execute our game plan. And I felt like that was very telling, just because he does he does fill up so many holes on that offense, or just that team in general. He bails them out of so many situations because of how good of a quarterback he is. It really makes you wonder how good the Chiefs really are without him.
I think they're an average middling team. Without Patrick Mahomes, they're an 8-8 team.
Yeah, I agree with that. We'll see what happens going forward. The Raiders have a bye week this week, and then we play Tampa Bay on Sunday Night Football in 2 weeks. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens then. But
the Gruden Bowl.
For weeks, the Gruden Bowl. Bruce Arians versus John Gruden, Tom Brady versus Derek Carr. It'll be very cool to see. But for this week, we have a couple games that we want to highlight that are our games of the week. Quinn, I believe I talked about my game of the week first last week. So I will allow you to talk first if you would like to.
All right, sure. My game of the week is the Chicago Bears versus the Carolina Panthers. It's a sneaky game, real sneaky game. The Bears right now are second in the NFC North, but it's a close second. They're 4-1. They're having a really sneaky good year. Obviously, there was a quarterback change from Trubisky to Foles. That seems to be more fruitful. Right now, Nick Foles is around a 63% completion percentage rate, which is 4 points higher than what Trubisky was. And in the 3 starts that each of them had, Nick Foles has surpassed Trubisky by 100 yards passing.
Yeah.
The Bears receiving core, really not bad. It seems like they kind of depend on Allen Robinson a lot. He has 421 yards. But
he's a beast.
It looks like more and more they're spreading the ball out. Anthony Miller's getting more involved, so is Jimmy Graham. David Montgomery's getting more involved in the passing game. Their defense still always seems like the Chicago defense is right there, super legit. Of course, they have Khalil Mack. Everybody knows who Khalil Mack is. But right now, he's tied with sacks at 3.5 with Akeem Hicks on the defensive line. They also got Roquan Smith, who's right now leading in tackles with 40 on the Bears defense.
Man.
Chicago's a really good team. Really good team.
Yeah.
They can be beat. Obviously, Nick Foles is not a dependable quarterback, or else he would not have played for every team in the league. But as of right now, as long as they can lean on that defense, if that defense can keep them in every game, then they have a chance. Now, they'll be taking on the Carolina Panthers, and Teddy Bridgewater is having a sneakily decent year.
Very, very good.
73 completion percentage, so he's 10 points higher than Nick Foles. He's already at 1,400 yards. He's averaging 300 yards per game, but he's also thrown 3 interceptions to 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of cause for concern. Obviously, the Panthers are struggling a little bit more because McCaffrey's been out.
Mm-hmm.
So defenses are loading up the back end to put more pressure on Bridgewater to make big plays. But their receiving core, when Cam Newton was the quarterback, we would shit all over the Panthers receiving core because he had no one to throw it to.
Yeah.
But for Teddy Bridgewater, Robbie Anderson, and DJ Moore have been stepping up. 36 receptions and 22 receptions, respectively. 489 yards, 381 yards. Both are averaging over 10 yards per reception. So, I mean, these are signs that bode well. One thing that is interesting to note that Dante Jackson, who is, their premier cornerback for the Carolina Panthers, is injured. So,
okay.
That lightens the load a little bit for the Chicago passing attack. It'll be a real interesting game. Carolina, I believe, is are they second in the NFC South right now? They're first in the NFC South.
They're first?
Carolina, 3-2, is first in the NFC South.
Oh yeah, the Saints. Yeah, did they beat the Saints? I think they beat the Saints. So that means that they beat.
And they also beat the Bucks, I'm pretty sure. No, they lost to the Bucks. No, they haven't played the Saints yet.
Oh, no, they beat the Falcons,
yeah,
and that's why, because they okay.
They have wins over Chargers, Arizona, and Atlanta.
Yeah.
But they lost 31-17 to Tampa Bay and 34-30 to Vegas.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they are streaking right now. So we'll see. I mean, depending on that division, it's kind of a toss-up between Tampa Bay. New Orleans got to win tonight.
Yeah.
So right now, Tampa Bay and Carolina are in a statistical tie for first place in the NFC South, which would mean what?
New Orleans, Tampa, and Carolina.
It's a three-way tie.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a big game.
That is a big game. That is a huge game.
So
and then Atlanta, we don't even have to talk about Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. Atlanta is just a complete dog shit. Let's see. New Orleans is on a bye, and then they come back and play Carolina. So that's interesting. Tampa Bay will be playing Green Bay next.
Yeah.
Then Las Vegas. That's a 2-game stretch. That's pretty fucking tough.
That would be tough. What do you think is going to happen in this game? What's your prediction?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a defensive game, somewhat of a low-scoring game. I'm going to go Carolina 17, Chicago 14.
Wow. I like that.
I think Teddy Bridgewater, I think this year he's going to establish himself as the franchise guy in Carolina.
Interesting.
I
like that pick.
Next year, once Christian McCaffrey comes back, that's when Carolina will be a better team. Like a true legit contender for that number 1 spot.
Wait, yeah, McCaffrey's out for the year, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
Let me double check on that.
I think he's just out for a couple more weeks. But I'm going to actually pick Carolina in this game as well. I do like how Robbie Anderson is playing, and of course Teddy's playing. I think that this offense for Carolina is just more dynamic when it comes to moving the ball downfield. When Christian McCaffrey was healthy and was playing for them, I feel like they were very easy to predict, and it was just like everyone knew exactly what was going to happen next, because he's their best player. So they were going to give him the ball almost every fucking play. But when you're playing a football game, you got to mix it up. And Teddy Bridgewater is a capable quarterback, and they're finally letting him throw it downfield,
right,
get you the yardage you need, and he can run too. It's not like he's he's immobile. He's a fast guy. He's athletic, so
he can make some plays in the pocket.
Oh, he can.
And outside
he can.
The pocket.
He. I mean, people forget that when he was with Minnesota, if he was a field goal away from taking them to the NFC Championship game. So
here's an update on Christian McCaffrey. He is eligible to return from IR as of Monday, but apparently, according to Panthers coach Matt Rule, and this is via the Charlotte Observer, that McCaffrey will undergo a series of tests today. So as of today, he went through a series of tests to evaluate his high ankle sprain. So I wouldn't bank that he'd be here. He played this weekend.
Yeah.
But next weekend or the following, I'd say
Interesting.
book 'em, Danny.
Yeah, I'm going to go Carolina in this game. I'm going to go Carolina. I'll go a little bit higher. I'll go 24-21 Carolina. We'll put them up a field goal. I think they improved to 4-2, and the Bears dropped to 4-2.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like the trajectory of both of these teams. Honestly, the Bears have surprised me. I thought they were going to be trash coming into this season, but
they're on the up and up.
They've shown that they actually have a good roster. It's just that Trubisky's kind of a goof.
They just need a franchise quarterback in Chicago.
It might be Trevor Lawrence. That might be a spot that might trade for him.
Sunshine
in Beantown. No, that's not Beantown. Beantown's Boston. Yeah, Windy City.
Trevor
well,
Lawrence,
I guess
that fucking guy.
Well, I guess that leads us kind of into speaking of sunshine. Let's talk about the Sunshine State, Florida. How many teams are in Florida? 3. How many wins do the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have? 3. They almost beat the Bears this past week, but came up no dice when Tampa Brady forgot what down it was.
Pulled old J.R. Smith.
He pulled the J.R. Smith and he forgot. But he's looking to redeem himself against another old man, Aaron Rodgers.
Bad man.
But he's a bad man too. That is true. He is a bad man. And that is my game of the week for this week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are heading up to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Now, this is a very, very, very interesting game. The Packers are coming back from bye. And before their bye, I mean, they've won 4 straight. They're 4-0, but they, totally trounced the Falcons, the now coachless Falcons. I mean, there's not much to say there. They picked them apart 30-16. They were able to squeak out a win against the Saints. Saying squeak out is putting it very generously for the Saints. They had that game won pretty decisively in New Orleans, and then they just obliterated the Lions and obliterated the Vikings. They haven't really been in any close games this entire season, the Packers, and now they're going into I misspoke. They're actually going into Tampa Bay, and they're playing the Buccaneers there. But of course, with fans in limited capacity, home field advantage isn't the same this year. But Aaron Rodgers is balling out. He's let's see,
right there in the MVP conversation.
Yeah, he is. As you know, Quinn, you have him on your fantasy team, but he has actually less passing yards than Teddy Bridgewater. He has 1,214 passing yards with on 139 attempts, which he's averaging about 309 yards per game. His quarterback rating averaging about 93.2. So, I mean, he's having a pretty good year for sure. There are some people ahead of him, in my opinion, in the MVP race, but he definitely, can raise his numbers and definitely can lead this team to, a really sustained postseason berth. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens down the line. But for this specific game, I think Aaron Jones is the X factor for the Packers. I mean, last week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were susceptible to the run when it came to David Montgomery of the Bears running on them. And that's where the Bears got a lot of their yardage was from running downfield. I mean, of course, Allen Robinson got his for sure. Nick Foles was slinging it around, but the ability to run and not just rely on the passes, obviously very, very helpful. And this defense is susceptible of giving the underneath, allowing for the underneath to be open for the opposing team's offense. And when you got a guy like Aaron Jones and a guy like Aaron Rodgers on the opposing team's offense, it's going to be a rough day for you. But flipping it over, like I've been saying, Tampa Bay, they lost in a nail-biter to the Bears. And Tom Brady, of course, has something to prove going into this game. He's beaten Aaron Rodgers in, I believe, every game they've played. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that he's never lost to Aaron Rodgers. And he's going to be looking to continue that streak in this game. But of course, he's on a different team. And the X factor for this team, in my opinion, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is very much on their defense. I think the game is going to be won or lost on that side of the ball. It's going to be the Tampa defense versus the Green Bay offense, and whoever can get better of the other side in that specific matchup is going to win this game. Tom Brady, I mean, he's has more yards this season than Aaron Rodgers, 1,375 to Aaron Rodgers, 1,214. So he has about 150 more yards than Aaron. Similar quarterback ratings, or actually no, I was looking at the wrong stat. Not as good of a quarterback rating. He has about a 59.1 quarterback rating. Oof. And so yeah, that definitely could be improved. Definitely can be improved. I'm not sure if Chris Godwin's going to be back for this game, but it's going to be a very intriguing matchup at the quarterback position.
Right.
But if you're like a really big football fan, I think it's more about the defense of the Buccaneers and the offense of the Packers, and to see who can get better.
Well, Aaron Rodgers has been lights out, 13 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. That's phenomenal. True. That's really what's keeping him or propelling him in the MVP conversation.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
That he's been outstandingly accurate. I'd say, watching this game, look for the Packers to establish the run early with Aaron Jones. He's averaging damn near 6 yards per carry. And then once the Buccaneers start to cram the box, that's when Rodgers in the second half of the game will start to open it up. Look at guys like Alan Lazard and Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, Devontae Adams comes back. I think it's a wrap.
Oh yeah.
I think it's not much of a contest. But if he sits out again, I think that's where the Buccaneers have to take advantage of their young receivers. I think Alan Lazard is gone, though. I think he got hurt for the rest of the season. I think he's done, if I remember correctly. He got hurt that game that he broke out. So
if I was the Buccaneers, man, I don't think they lean into the run enough.
You don't think so?
No. I mean, Ronald Jones is averaging 4.9 yards a carry, but Leonard Fournette's averaging 5.1.
It's just difficult because he got hurt too.
He has less than half the carries. Well, yeah, he did get hurt, but he has less than half the carries of Ronald Jones. I like to see them open up the run game a little bit more. Lean on that.
Yeah.
Open things up for Tom Brady. Draw a safety inside the box.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be a very interesting game to see what strategies each team utilizes in order to get an edge on their opponent. But like I've been hinting at this entire time, I think I'm going to take the Packers in this game. I'm going to take the Packers. I'm going to say it's going to be a higher scoring game than people think, but it doesn't mean that there is no defense being played. It's just sometimes the offense is just better than the defense. And I think that's going to be this situation. And I'm going to give Packers 28, Tampa Bay 21.
Wow. I think this is going to be an ass whooping. I'm going to go Packers 28, Buccaneers 10.
Dang.
I think this is going to be an ass whooping. I think Packers are going to get out to a big lead early, and they're going to force Tom Brady to win the game, and Tom's going to make some mental errors. We've seen him make some pretty significant mental errors this year so far. I think he's going to make some mental errors in this game.
Man, that'd be crazy if that happens. But it's interesting as a Raiders fan. I mean, Tampa plays Vegas after this game, like the following week.
Right.
If you were a Raiders fan, Quinn, would you rather want Tampa Bay to win this game and be riding high going into Vegas, or would you want them to lose so their morale's kind of low?
I want them to lose. I want their morale to be low, and then I want Josh Jacobs to break them, to break their morale completely. Have like a 120-yard game.
Yeah,
I'm no fan of the Buccaneers.
Well, of course not. I'm not either. I'm just wondering, because sometimes you want the team that you're going to play next to win. especially a team like this that is
False
very streaky.
confidence.
Yeah, they get some false confidence. They overlook you, and then Vegas pounces. I mean, that's what Vegas took care of. That's how they took care of business on the Chiefs. I feel like they kind of overlooked the Raiders a little bit. They thought they were just going to be able to waltz into a victory. And
Yeah, I
Raiders
think
were
the
like that.
Chiefs have a wild sense of bravado this year. Like there's this false air of invincibility around Kansas City,
Hmm.
and it's really all centered around Patrick Mahomes.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. But it'll be interesting seeing what goes forward. But we're both picking the Packers, and it'll be very entertaining to watch this game for sure, just to see what late game heroics come to fruition or not. Be very fun. But yeah, I guess that's all we got for our NFL games of the week. So once again, Quinn picked the Bears against the Carolina Panthers. Me and Quinn both picked the Panthers to win that game. And then I picked Tampa Bay hosting the Green Bay Packers, and I picked the Packers to win. Quinn also went the same way. So I guess it is time for our weekly recommendations. So Quinn, would you like to go first?
My weekly recommendation is a comic book via the House of Ideas, Marvel, in a prelude to what will be their big event of next year. This comic book is titled X of Swords.
Ooh.
And it is an X-Men comic written by Jonathan Hickman and Tini Howard. Basically, if you've been following the X-Men and their relaunch via Jonathan Hickman, they retconned a lot of things in the past. This is kind of a clean slate for the X-Men. They've established their own country on the island of Krakoa. And this event, X of Swords, really centers around one of the greatest X-Men villains of all time, now turned ally, and Saba Noor, also known as Apocalypse.
Ooh.
And basically, the crux of this is the children of Apocalypse have amassed an army and are looking to take over this place, the Starlight Citadel, and then from there, they're looking to take over Krakoa, the mutant nation.
Oh, wow.
To which Apocalypse sits on the High Council of. He would like to protect Krakoa and also unify these two lands. So Apocalypse and 9 other champions will fight in a Game of Thrones trial by combat-esque duel against the children of Apocalypse, and these children are thousands and thousands of years old. These aren't like the Archangel horsemen of the Apocalypse. These are the legitimate children of Apocalypse.
Wow.
So it's super cool. There's magic involved. Obviously, there's mutants involved, and it looks to be pretty swordy. I read the first issue today to catch up on it, and it does have a very Game of Thrones-esque feel.
Interesting.
A real high fantasy sort of feel. And I can't recommend it enough. Fans of Jonathan Hickman know how closely his material has been adapted into the MCU. So I would recommend pay attention to Jonathan Hickman's X-Men run, because it could very well be how the X-Men are introduced into the MCU.
Where can people find these comics? Like, where can you read them?
You could go to the Marvel.com and go to Marvel, their store, and you could read the digital comic there. My preferred site is a Amazon app known as Comixology. That's Comixology. They receive all the fresh comics on their release day, and at a fairly reasonable price. Typically, $4.99 to $6.99, depending on if it's newer, and then if it's older, $1.99, $2.99. They have a plethora of sales going on that would allow you to check out Sensational She-Hulk in the 1980s, or Doom War.
Yeah.
They also have free comic books that people can download.
Oh, sweet.
I can't recommend it enough. I'm there, once every 3 days. So, yeah, my recommendation this week is X of Swords, the big X-Men event going into 2021 here at the end of 2020, are coming in at the end of 2020 by Jonathan Hickman. Tini Howard are the writers. The whole Hickman run of X-Men has been really awesome. It's been a mind trip. It's a 22-issue run for this big event, which, most events aren't 22 issues. So it shows you the confidence Marvel has in it.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Hickman tells, he plays the long game. Tells a long, long story. Secret Wars 2, which was written by him, started in his Fantastic Four run, and, ended, obviously, with Secret Wars 2, Battle World, Doctor Doom takes over the world.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
We'll see how this goes, but so far it's off to a great start.
Sweet. I'll definitely check it out. I have to get back into comics and stuff. I'm going to have some downtime coming up here, so I'm definitely going to be on Comixology, checking out some of your recs from the past weeks, because I know you recommended some other stuff. My weekly recommendation is something that's already been recommended this episode. Our guest, Lici Hopkins, and I release music under our band name, Dreary Eyes. So you could find our songs on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. If you use Napster for some reason, it's on Napster. If you use...
Is it on Livewire?
It's I don't know about LimeWire. I don't know if that even exists anymore, but if it does, it's probably on there too. It's on really any place you can get or stream your music. It's on Bandcamp as well. I made a Bandcamp page for it a couple months ago, so it's on Bandcamp if you want to support there. Also, Lici puts out solo stuff like she talked about. She has a SoundCloud where she features a lot of her solo material that's very ethereal in nature, like Quinn beautifully and eloquently described earlier in the episode. And her SoundCloud is Lici Fur. That's her little username on SoundCloud that you can listen to her rough cuts on.
How apt.
Yeah, I know, right?
Ethereal, not in an angelic sense, but in the wailing echoes of a tortured soul in the halls of hell.
Yeah, that's what we try to channel, pretty much.
Hellfire.
So if you're interested, if you like hearing tortured souls and beckoning, cries for help from hell, you can listen to our music. I would suggest, thank you. And I would suggest to listen to our 2 songs on Dreary Eyes' Dreary Eyes' discography, Blood, Love, and Flutter. In my opinion, those are our 2 not only most accessible songs in just kind of their structure, but they're the 2 songs I'm most proud of us creating. So once again, we are Dreary Eyes, and you can check us out at those places I listed before, and definitely check out Lici's solo stuff too, because she's awesome and her voice is fucking crazy, amazing. And but yeah, Quinn, thank you. This has been a good episode. That's all we got for this specific episode. We'll be back next week with another guest. Stay tuned to see who that is. To stay up to date on all things we do, you can follow us on Instagram at The Closers Podcast, on Facebook at Closers Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are The Closers Podcast. Share these videos or episodes with your favorite people so we can start building a community of favorite people. Because just imagine if everyone's favorite people were in one specific community, just the amount of positivity that community would have. It'd be fucking great. And we're trying to build something like that. So help us out. Share this with your best friends. But yeah, like I said, next week we're going to have a new guest. And Quinn will be at you on Monday with Hang 10. I'm going to close out your week this upcoming Friday, as always, with with closing out the week. So, we'll see what we're going to talk about. The week is still young. It's only Wednesday. We got another day. See what's going to happen. But yeah, anyways, without any further ado, on behalf of Quinn Kalani of the Closers Podcast, I'm Mark Alvarado. Have a great rest of your week. Talk to you Friday.